The cab dropped Hoa off at the corner of an aging street, where fog seemed to cling to the pavement like dust in an attic. She glanced up at the 5-story building ahead, Tien Hoa Hotel, its yellowed facade faded, windows cracked like tired eyes. She adjusted her backpack and took a deep breath. This was where she would be staying for the next 2 weeks while completing her tourism internship in Dalat. The hotel was quiet, too quiet. A small, dusty lobby stretched out in front of her as she entered, dimly lit by a flickering overhead bulb. Behind the reception counter sat an old man with pale skin and watery eyes. He didn't look up when she arrived, simply slid a pen across the counter. "Room 204, he said hoarsely. "Stairs only. Elevator hasn't worked in years." She signed the register and reached for the old brass key. Just as she touched it, the man's eyes finally met hers. "If you see anything strange after midnight," he muttered, "don't look in the mirror." Hoa blinked. "Excuse me?" The man said nothing more. He turned away and picked up a book, pretending to read. Hoa forced a smile, chalking it up to small-town eccentricity. Still, something about the way his voice had dropped, the wariness behind his warning. It lingered with her as she climbed the creaky wooden stairs to the second floor. Room 204 was at the end of the corridor. The hallway was narrow, lined with faded wallpaper that had once been green but now looked more like spoiled milk. Each door had an old bronze number plate and a tarnished handle. When she unlocked room 204 and stepped inside, a gust of cold, stale air greeted her like a whisper from a sealed tomb. The room was small, a single bed, wooden floors, a writing desk by the window. Beige curtains that looked like they hadn't been washed since the 90s, and, just as promised, a large mirror hung above the bed's headboard, oval-shaped, with a black wooden frame carved in strange twisting patterns. Hoa wrinkled her nose. There was a smell here, not rot exactly, but oldness, like mothballs, damp books, and candle wax. She opened the window to let in some air, then dropped her bag onto the bed with a heavy sigh. Despite its age, the room felt safe enough. Quaint, even. She pulled out her laptop and opened her internship folder, trying to ignore the mirror. Still, her eyes kept drifting toward it. The glass was hazy. No matter how many times she tried wiping it with a tissue, it stayed cloudy, as if something on the other side was breathing against the surface. That night, after dinner and a few video calls home, Hoa settled into bed with a book. The light from the small bedside lamp flickered from time to time. But the silence of the room wrapped around her like a blanket. At 12:43 a.m., she glanced at the mirror without thinking and froze. There was something wrong. The mirror no longer reflected her room. It showed a hallway, white walls smeared with handprints, a tiled floor speckled with something that looked like dried blood. And, far in the distance, the silhouette of a girl standing with her back to the mirror. Hoa sat up slowly. Her book slid off the bed, forgotten. She turned her head to check the real room behind her. Nothing. Just the desk and window. She looked back at the mirror. The girl had moved closer. Still facing away, her long black hair hanging straight down like a curtain, she wore a white nightgown, barefoot. Her arms hung limp at her sides. Hoa's throat tightened. Her heart pounded in her ears. The girl in the mirror twitched, then turned her head. Not all the way. Just a jerk to the side, like a broken doll. And then... the lamp blew out. Darkness swallowed the room. Hoa scrambled for her phone, flicking on the flashlight with shaking fingers. The mirror was empty, just her reflection, pale and wide-eyed. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, Hoa left the hotel early and wandered the city in a daze, trying to distract herself. She dismissed the night's events as stress, maybe sleep paralysis, or even just her imagination playing tricks. She hadn't slept properly in days. Maybe it was catching up. But when she returned to the hotel that evening, she noticed something strange. The other rooms on her floor had changed. Room 203 had a rusted padlock. Room 205's number plate was missing. The wallpaper was curling off the walls like scorched paper, and she could swear that the hallway lights had been replaced with dim, flickering bulbs since the day before. She hesitated outside her door, staring at the mirror through the gap in the slightly open curtain. It reflected nothing now, just a flat gray sheen, dull and opaque. That night, she fell asleep with her bedside lamp on. Sometime around 1:30 a.m., Hoa woke suddenly, unsure why. There was no sound. No movement, just the heavy silence that made her chest feel tight. Then she heard it. A scratch! Coming from the mirror, slow, deliberate, and rhythmic, like nails on glass. She sat up, frozen, as the scratching continued. Then it stopped. For a moment, nothing happened. And then a crack. A faint, splintering crack ran down the center of the mirror. Hoa gasped. She reached for her phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no time on the lock screen. Just the image of the cracked mirror reflected on the black screen. She turned the phone around. The mirror was whole again. But something had changed. Now she was standing in the hallway within the mirror. Her reflection had disappeared from the room completely. It was as if the mirror showed a world where Hoa was on the other side, and in that version, she was screaming. The version in the mirror pounded her fists on invisible glass. Her mouth was wide open in a silent scream, her eyes pleading. Hoa leapt from the bed and ran to the hallway. All the lights went out. She fumbled her way to the stairwell, heart pounding. But when she reached the landing, she stopped. The entire second floor had disappeared. Where the hallway should have been, there was only black void. The stairs behind her were gone. Her room, her lamp, the desk, all of it erased. Only the mirror remained, now standing upright in the middle of a floorless space. And through it, she could still see herself, trapped, screaming. Then she heard the girl again, the one in white, not from the mirror, but behind her. Very close. The breath on her neck made her skin crawl. "Don't turn around," a voice whispered. "If you see me, she takes you." Hoa froze. She squeezed her eyes shut. A child's hand touched her wrist, cold, bony. "You have to fix the mirror," the voice said. "Break it and you'll stay. Seal it and she sleeps." Hoa opened her eyes. She was back in bed, soaked in sweat. The mirror was whole. No crack, no hallway, no reflection screaming. She sat up, breathing hard, and turned on the lamp. This time the mirror showed only her. And yet, her reflection was smiling. But she wasn't. The smile in the mirror faded the instant Hoa blinked. Her reflection returned to normal. Tired eyes, shaking hands, hair clinging to her damp neck. But the unease remained, seeping into her bones like cold water. She didn't sleep again that night. At sunrise, she went back downstairs to speak to the front desk clerk. The old man was there, reading the same yellowed book. "I need to change rooms," she said. He looked up at her. His eyes were cloudy but sharp underneath. "Why?" "That mirror," she said, lowering her voice. It's not right. Something's wrong with it." He didn't react at first. Then, quietly, he closed his book. "That mirror's been there since before this was a hotel," he said. "Used to be a mental asylum during the war. Room 204 was the matron's quarters. She had a daughter. They say the girl disappeared inside the mirror and never came out." "Is that a ghost story?" He nodded once. "Maybe, but there's rules. Don't sleep with the lights off. Don't speak to her if she speaks first. And never, ever look into the mirror after midnight if it's cracked." "It cracked last night," Hoa whispered. The man's expression hardened. "Then you need to seal it before she walks through." "How do I do that?" He pulled something out from under the desk. A small red paper talisman covered in black ink symbols she couldn't read. "Tape this to the center of the mirror before 3 nights pass. If you wait too long, she stays." Hoa took it with shaking hands. That night, she taped the talisman to the center of the mirror and tried to ignore it. But something inside her kept glancing up. The red paper twitched occasionally, like it was breathing. It should have made her feel safer. It didn't. She fell into a light, white, shallow sleep sometime around 2 a.m. When she woke again, the mirror was glowing. The talisman was gone, and something was moving behind the glass. It wasn't the girl this time. It was her. Another Ho, standing inside the hallway again. But she wasn't screaming. She was smiling again. Smiling wider now, dark smudges under her eyes, blood trailing from one nostril. She raised her hand and pressed it to the other side of the mirror. Hoa felt pressure against her own palm, even though she wasn't moving. The glass pulsed. She staggered back. The red paper talisman lay crumpled on the desk, burnt. She ran from the room. In the hallway, it was pitch black. No windows, no lights, just breathing. Deep, rasping breathing. The door to room 203 opened slowly, hinges squealing like an animal in pain. Inside, nothing. Except for another mirror. This one cracked and shattered at the center. And in the shards, 100 girls in white dresses, some crying, some staring, some reaching toward her. One by one, they turned their heads and smiled. Hoa slammed the door and bolted back to 204, but her room was gone. There was only a brick wall. She stumbled back. Her breath misted in front of her. Then, from behind her, the girl's voice again. You broke the rule. Hoa spun around. There she was, the girl in the white dress. Her hair was soaked, hanging in wet clumps across her face. Her limbs dangled unnaturally, as if disconnected from her body. Her head twitched slightly to the side, and her bare feet made no sound as she floated just inches above the hallway floor. Hoa wanted to scream, but her voice had gone. The girl inched forward. Do you want to leave? She whispered. Hoa nodded frantically. You can't. You opened the mirror. You saw what you weren't meant to see. I didn't mean to, Hoa cried. The girl's face twitched. They never do. Behind her, the air shimmered. The hallway peeled open like old wallpaper, revealing rot beneath. Black veins spread along the ceiling. The floor pulsed. Then a hand reached through the wall. A woman's hand. Long fingers, sharp nails. Another hand followed, then a head, a face with no eyes. Just two black holes where sockets should have been, leaking tar. The mouth opened wide, then wider, until it stretched down the length of her chest. The matron, the original occupant of room 204. The woman dragged herself out of the wall, crawling like a spider. You belong to me now, the voice rasped, not from her mouth, but from all directions. Hoa turned and ran, but the hallway curved in impossible directions. No doors, no stairs, no windows, only walls of mirrors now. Tall, arched ones that reflected nothing but endless versions of her, all twisted and broken. Some screamed, some bled. One version stared at her and mouthed a word, switch. Then all the reflections turned toward her in unison, and the lights went out. Hoa stumbled blindly, heart hammering, until her foot struck something soft. She looked down, the girl again. Except now, her face was Hoa's. She reached up, gripped Hoa's wrist, and pulled. It didn't hurt. It split. Hoa fell, but not into darkness this time. Into the mirror. She landed in the hallway she had seen night after night. White walls, red stains, a ceiling light that flickered like a dying eye. The real hallway was gone. Now she was inside, behind the glass. She pounded on the mirror, screaming silently. In the room beyond, she could see herself, or the thing wearing her face, walk calmly back to the bed. It picked up the journal on her desk and began to write. Then it looked up, right at her, and smiled. Hoa's body was found 3 days later by hotel staff. The room was locked from the inside. There were no signs of struggle, no forced entry. The only thing out of place was the mirror, cracked at the center, a red paper talisman hanging half-burned from the frame. The old man at the front desk said nothing to the police. But that night, he took out a new talisman, pressed it carefully against the mirror, and whispered, "Sleep." And for a while, room 204 was quiet again, until the next girl checked in, and at 12:43 a.m., looked into the glass. The end.